to get ready to roll here. We're going to do a countdown. We're going to start it out with a 5. Then we're going to go 4, 3, 2. Hey, we are back. We're back up here.
Ooh, I love hearing that, Eddie.
That's
Clearwater
beautiful music.
Blues.
If we get permission from Eddie, maybe we'll switch it from Jimi Hendrix for the theme song, and we'll have Eddie Clearwater theme song. That was really nice. We're going to look forward to Eddie Clearwater. He's coming up in about 20 minutes. Right now, we are very honored. I have a special guest that I twisted her arm. She was coming home for a visit, and I said, oh, come on the radio show. So, good morning to you.
Good morning and welcome, Casey Blue James.
Good morning.
How is it that you became a poet while I wasn't paying attention?
Well, I don't know when it happened. I do think that I had some really good training in our very fine Chicago public school system. The Chicago Poetry Center came into my elementary school and had a poetry class for us when we were in 6th grade. So early on, I think I had some good schooling.
Oh, that's great.
That was public schools, right?
Sure was.
Oh, hallelujah.
And I was surrounded by creative people growing up, and I used
writers.
to write little poems. Yeah,
Your mom?
my mom.
Actually, Casey Blue's footprints as a kid are out there on the patio at the Heartland Cafe as you come in.
You know, and that has everything to do with you becoming a poet. I know that much. Anytime your parents stick your feet in cement.
It was just the earliest time I made my mark.
You made your mark. That's right. That's right. So did college grow that even more?
Yeah, it did.
And what did you choose to do in college that grew that more?
Well, when I was a wee freshman, I knew I wanted to do the creative writing concentration at Yale. And big, exciting, really great professors. And I kind of just applied for every creative writing class they had every semester, not knowing what I would get into. And the first one I got into was the poetry class, so I guess I'm doing poetry. So I did that, and I had an amazing teacher my sophomore fall, Louise Glick, great poet.
Right. Isn't she a poet laureate?
She was a poet laureate.
Nominated under Bush, but she told me she didn't really like Bush.
She didn't. Not at all.
Poets don't have to be political necessarily. It's not required.
And it was really an awesome experience to be in a workshop with some tough peers and a really tough teacher. She's got a keen eye, but she's very honest. She's brutally honest. She's very terse, but that's when you know.
What a gift!
Yeah, but when she says something nice, you know she really means it.
Yeah,
did you ever get mad at her?
Oh, I mean, your feelings get hurt in workshops all the time. Big ego bruise, but it's good.
Tell me, who inspires you? Whose written word made your heart sing and made you want to go to your pen and page or your keyboard and page, as it were?
I really love Frank O'Hara. He's my favorite poet. I mean, I have a million favorites, but I love him because his speaking voice, I think, is something that I strive for, which is nothing pretentious, nothing too literary, just it's conversational, it's interpersonal. You feel like he's sharing like a letter that's meant for a specific person with everyone.
Great. Yes.
And I think that it's something I don't shy away from is poems that are meant for one person, but they're written in just a very conversational you sometimes. And
is he of our generation or younger than?
He was in the 50s, 60s, I guess.
Okay, Frank O'Hara.
Did you read any Ferlinghetti?
I have, and I wrote. This was a fun thing. When I took the intro class I took with her was sophomore fall, and then I took this advanced workshop, and that every week you wrote a poem, but you also wrote a review of a poetry book, so you could practice your critical skills and your analytical writing skills about poetry. And I wrote about Ferlinghetti once. She liked that one.
That's the only poem that your dad can recite.
It's impressive. I don't have any
Coney
poems
Island
memorized.
of the Mind.
I've never memorized. I've memorized them for class, but then I always forget them.
Well, we used to memorize Carl Sandburg poems here in Chicago.
Well, how about you give us a poem, and then we'll talk a little more, and then we'll
let's hear that
have
voice
another
of
one.
yours.
Okay.
Have fun with it, Casey.
Casey Blue James, Rogers Park girl.
I'll start with this one's called 6 o'clock. I wrote this last summer when I was home for the summer. 6 o'clock. My father parks what he calls his blonde truck a little too close to other cars on the block to conserve space. He yells, "Hark," when he comes home, and "Hark," my mother responds quietly. She's reading the paper. "What is a kiss?" my father asks the dog, who licks his face. "You don't know what a kiss is." He stretches out on the floor in front of our television set, grinding his lower back onto the coffee table, waiting for a pop. At the end of the news hour, the crew of a space shuttle comes on for an interview. They try to stay in some approximation of a seated position, but they float upwards. One man has all but given up. You can see him giggling as his head bumps the ceiling. Afterward, the scent of burnt garlic wafts from the kitchen. My father's cooking dinner. He's arranged bell peppers over a pile of ground meat, a pinwheel he's proud of and which he photographs. "White Sox are on now," he says, and the jocular timbre of the announcer fills the room like a familiar friend. He calls a fly ball a can of corn. For the first time, we're curious. "Easy to reach," my father says. He plays with the chocolate ice cream on his spoon, creating a creamy sculpture. "Can of corn," he says, in 20 different voices. He likes it.
Oh my gosh.
That's a fun poem.
That is so sweet.
That one's
About this guy.
okay, right there.
I feel
My poetic inspiration.
really. I love that.
Well, I do. When we go to the Y and things like that, I always try to. Well, I don't think I tried. Just some weird phrases come out of my mouth, and I don't know if you'll remember any of them.
Only when you go to the Y, Michael? I have heard strange phrases come out of your mouth almost anywhere.
No, it's true though. We'll be driving in his pickup truck, and he'll just have little gems now and then, observations about people on the sidewalk, and that was so good. And I always wish I wrote them down. It's really funny.
Okay, since my dad isn't here, I'm gonna say a couple things because I love that you're picking up your dad's fun phrases. I think of my dad's fun phrases right now, and they're things like, "What are you doing? Posing for holy pictures?" That's when you're not working enough or active enough.
That's a good one.
I know, I
like
love that. And when someone offers him food and he doesn't want it, he goes, "No thanks, just had a big bowl of oatmeal." Didn't matter what time of the day it was. Those are two from Bill Hogan.
Those are good.
All right, you got another one. Do you have another one?
Well, before that, let me ask you. You are living in New York. You're actually living with your brother Jesse, my son Jesse, and his daughter Olympia and Gus.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably quite a household. How do you like New York? We always were hoping you'd come back to the Midwest or even go further west, and I'm sure you'll get a shot at that. But how do you like being a newbie in New York?
It is really exciting. I mean, I'm a Chicago girl at heart, for sure. There's a lot of things that, and this was true when I was in school. You smile at someone on the street and they think you're crazy.
In New York.
Oh yeah, I mean.
But here.
Here everybody smiles at everybody. That's why I do it. It's my instinct. But no, you don't do that on the East Coast. Then they start talking to you, and it's a lot.
And it's not good.
Well, you know, every Wednesday.
It's more than friendly. It's strange.
Every Wednesday night we have a poetry session here, In One Ear Poetry, and it's been going on for many years. It started over at the old No Exit, and it goes on here. And sometimes there's some really heavy hitter poets and some visiting poets come through town, and sometimes it's like really some wild youth doing their thing, you know. And I'm just wondering, I don't remember you ever going to poetry readings of that nature. And I wonder about New York. Do you go to poetry readings? Are there events that attract your attention and inspire you?
I haven't yet. I've gone to some. My brother-in-law Gus, who I'm living with, is an amazing poet, published poet, really remarkable. And I've gone to some of his readings at St. Mark's, which is a very established literary scene in New York for poetry. It's been around for years, and he's read lots of other cool places. But for myself, I haven't read, and I think that it's something I'm still figuring out. I think a lot of my peers in poetry classes were not sure how to balance poems that are very much written poems, and then there's spoken word, which is a totally different genre, and I don't identify as a spoken word poet, and I think that the readings here aren't always spoken word. I mean, I think people write things to be written and then they read them aloud.
What's the difference?
I mean, I think each poet would define it differently.
Right.
For me, I think I had a lot of friends who did what they called spoken word, and they really wrote things
To be
and
spoken.
and they spoke to them as they spoke to themselves as they wrote
So
them.
it's somewhat musical, somewhat rhythmic, or
Yeah, and I mean, all poetry is lyrical in its own way, but that has a very
cadence
Yeah.
oriented.
Well, we did have a pretty famous spoken word poet. John Trudell was here.
Sure.
You know, of the American Indian movement. And
remember.
I heard he was just down in at New Mexico State. Russ Bradford, who comes on the show, said he talked to him briefly, and he actually told him hello from the Heartland, and he actually remembered your mom, Paige James's name. I said, "Oh yeah, Paige James."
All right.
But Trudell was a wonderful thing, and I think we have those recordings somewhere. I know we have photographs. He was here a couple of times doing a benefit for Leonard Peltier, who's still incarcerated.
Unjustly.
Unjustly. Well, Casey Blue James, give us another poem.
Okay. Do something a little different this time.
Do we need to dance or snap our fingers?
No.
Okay.
I'd say that a lot of my poems are very non-fictional. Are they working? Is this working?
Yeah, I think it's working. Okay.
Switch mics.
All right, I'm gonna.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one's a little different. I think I was saying I think a lot of my poetry is very non-fictional because I'm young and I have nothing else to write about but what I know.
Take a breath.
But this was an exercise that when I was doing my senior project with Louise, she said, you need to pick an artist and do some research and write that kind of poem. So this is what that is. This is about Georgia O'Keeffe. Georgia. Georgia and Ida used to line up little hills of ash from outside the farmhouse in a circular pattern, then take turns smearing them into streaks. Their parents arranged for lessons from the comely watercolorist. In Chicago, the work was boring. The turpentine made her sick. Then, Radiator Building, night, New York. She walked the Brooklyn Bridge with Alfred. Hello, I kiss you, she wrote in green. Found in my slippers, he notes. Georgia had left for New Mexico. She had. I hate flowers, she said, when everyone loved them, analyzed the folds and tendrils. I paint them because they're cheaper than models and they don't move. But here there was the far away. There were bigger folds, black places and white places, washes, roads, fields, water holes wet and dry like marvelous rug patterns. In Abiquiu, there was a door and a walkway, a skull on a summer day. Sky above clouds 4, painted from the vantage point of a first ride, viewed from below outside the cafeteria of the Art Institute. Her eyes gave out, but she learned to sculpt. She didn't need to see the centers of things to feel them, fashioning the Badlands clay. Blind pots, vessels, a series of new watercolors. Then she died. But the codicils were all wrong. Everything went to the potter who came from nowhere and did odd jobs on the ranch. Everything but a few rocks from the quarry. At the lab, they named the fossil inside after her, Ephigia O'Keeffe, the ghost of the hands with a thimble.
Well, that's pretty nice.
Dang, girl, that's great. That was great.
Well, don't close up your computer because we got one more poem, and I guess Katie asked her a question, and we'll go out with a poem. What do you want to be when you get older?
When you grow up, like we're still looking for ideas on what we're going to be when we grow up. So, what do you want to be?
You know as much as I do about that. I want to be a poet, but I think that you can be a poet and you can be a million things. And I think that, again, I'm living with an amazing poet now, and he has a job, and he wakes up every morning at 5 in the morning and meditates and writes a poem, and then he does his daily job. And some of the best poets, I mean, T.S. Eliot was a banker. I'm blanking on everyone's name. Wallace Stevens had a day. Like a lot of really cool poets had either really mundane day jobs or really cool ones. And I think that I have so many passions, and I don't know which one I'm going to follow yet, besides poetry. And I just hope that I can do them at the same time.
You can.
That's cool. I'm glad you've observed that they don't pay you to be a poet. I like that practical side of
Okay,
it.
Casey Blue James, give us one more poem.
One last one. Here we go.
Okay. This one is called I Return to Queens, which is where I live, and I will be returning there tomorrow, sadly.
And we'll be sad you go, but we'll be happy for you because you'll have a good time over there.
Yeah. I return to Queens, and Olympia has named her baby doll Eyebrow. His name used to be Pomegranate Cheese, and before that it was just Nobody. She makes her animal figurines talk to each other now, and I can tell by the inflection of her voice when she makes the cat say hi to the elephant in a breathy, high-pitched rise and fall that this new game is inspired by Grandma Stormy. She covered all the holes in the wooden floors with scraps of paper and tape to keep the mice out. Anything unpleasant now smells or tastes like rat. But perhaps this is what she meant when she scowled and told Lisa she would make her eat bad food. If you were stranded on a piece of rice, Gus asks her, and you had to choose between riding a llama and eating only carrots, what would you do? She sits at the head of the table as though conducting a board meeting at every meal. After dinner, she gallops down the hall shouting, "I'm going to California," though, as she tells Jesse, she is not on top of her lungs.
Let's have a big round of applause for Casey Blue James.
Nicely done, Casey.
Can people find your poetry anywhere online?
Not really. I think I published one thing in the Yale Daily News magazine. It's probably somewhere online. I would say Google me, but Casey James, there's some Casey Jameses on the internet that should not be Googled.
You're Casey Blue James. I thought you were in
friends don't let friends Google their own names.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, enough. I had thought there was something in Smithsonian that you guys...
I'm not sure what you mean. I was named a Norman Mailer semifinalist, but the poetry is not online.
Okay,
yet.
well,
Yet.
it will be.
Keep you
All
posted.
right.
It's
Let's
great
have a
to
big round
have
of
you.
applause for Casey Blue James. We're so glad you came on the show.
Pleasure to be here. Two of my favorite people.
That's good. And we want to, while I got an opportunity, I want to thank the Heartland Cafe for helping to underwrite the show. And Jay, give us another one of Eddie Clearwater's tunes. And Casey Blue's going off the stage, and Eddie Clearwater's coming up on the stage.
Along with
Katie
Lynn
Hogan.
Orman.
Lynn Orman's going to come up and talk with us. She's